Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 131. I am coming to you from an overcast day here in Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our two young children. I cannot believe it is already the third week of September, year 2024. This month is just flying by. I feel like I say that with every month, but I feel like we just turned the page to September 1st. So how could it possibly be the third week of September already? I think part of it is that we had a slight dip in temperature, so fake fall. And then it went back up, and we're in the mid 80s, sometimes even hitting 90 degrees with the heat index and humidity. And so it doesn't quite feel like fall yet, but the calendar says that it's in September, and so it should feel more like September. But yeah, it's this transitional weather, and I think we're all gearing up for autumn and all those cozy vibes, but the weather is saying otherwise, and yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Welcome if you are new here. The way I usually run these episodes is we have an intro welcome section. We go into finished projects, works in progress, eats and reads is where I talk about things maybe I've been cooking or baking and books that I have been reading. And then sometimes there is a food for thought section where I share something that's been weighing on my mind and my heart, just something that can just be interesting or a question for you. I sometimes have that, sometimes don't. It just kind of depends if I wrote anything down when I think of something. Otherwise, it just bloop, disappears and I forget. So I don't think I have anything written down for that section today. Spoiler alert. But I do have a couple of finished projects. If you missed the last 3 episodes, I kind of went over a lot of finished projects that I made over the summer, and they weren't necessarily all started and finished in the summer. Some I started maybe earlier in the spring and then finished in the summer, but just didn't have a chance to talk about it on YouTube yet. And I also did something a little bit different where I showed a lot of mix and matching with all of those different items. A lot of them were sewn items and knit items, and I really got in the groove of mixing and matching those outfits together. And so if you missed that mini series per se, I would definitely go check that out if that is something that you are interested in. So today I mentioned I have a couple of finished projects to share with you, and then I have some active works in progress to share, and then I do have one book that I am reading right now, and so I'll talk about that a little bit. And yeah, I think that's what we've got going today. The first finished project I'd like to share with you today is the one that I am wearing. This is the Metropolitan Pullover by Tori Yu. It was released September 2024, earlier this month, and I had the chance to test knit this for Tori. I had so much fun knitting this. It is a new to me construction that isn't completely new in all of the different aspects of it, but as a whole, it was a new construction to me, and I just enjoyed learning something a little bit different, but something that didn't take so much concentration that I couldn't do the other things that I need to do. And so yeah, this is really fun. And I tried 2 new to me yarns, so that was also fun. Let me get my notes out here. So I knit on this in like July, August, end of July into August. And it did not take very long because the gauge is at 16 stitches by 24 rows on 4 inches of blocked stockinette. And the recommended needles are a US 10 which is a 6mm needle for the main fabric. Now that goes by pretty quickly. I think what's also nice about this gauge is that you can have a little more wiggle room in what kind of yarn you choose to create a fabric density that you like. So the pattern is designed for it to be light and airy and more of that like loose gauge type of fabric. But I think because it is at 16 stitches for 4 inches, you just have a little more room to play. So if you don't want it to be as holey, you could always use a yarn that is a little heavier in weight and just see where that gets you. It may not be as airy and drapey, but you won't have it as holey. So this pattern comes in finished circumference of 36 inches up to 68 inches in the full bust, and it is recommended to hold a fingering and lace weight yarn together. And the size I knit was a size 1. Recommended ease is 4 to 6 inches of positive ease, and the size 1 is within that range for me, 4 inches of positive ease. And this is knit top down. It is a contiguous construction worked seamlessly in the round, and it has this construction where it mimics set-in sleeves. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit closer so you can see the shoulder shaping. You have these beautiful eyelet increases, and it's along this top of the shoulder as well and continues down the front and the back. We have lovely I-cord finishings along the neckline and the sleeve cuffs, and hopefully that's focusing. Sometimes if I get too close it doesn't focus, so apologize for that in advance. The body hem also has an I-cord finishing. I have my orchard top underneath. I have another video talking about this top, and I am wearing my June pants. Both the top and the pants are by the designer Helen's Closet. So I have these bright green linen pants on with a very bold, fun, graphic tank top underneath, and then I have my Metropolitan pullover on top. And I think it's really fun. It's a fun way to transition from summer to fall, although I suppose these colors are not very fall-esque, so maybe this is more of a spring transition outfit, but it's what I'm wearing today. So I might have to take the sweater off though, it's getting a little warm. So after I finish talking about it, the sweater may have to come off. It's way too hot. I think that's it for like, I guess pattern notes, pattern details. And something I really like is that the schematic is up front for you to look over before you purchase the pattern. That way you can see if the measurements are going to be something that are going to work for you, or if you are going to have to make a bunch of adjustments. And if that's okay with you, that's fine also. But I like to know what I'm getting myself into. I like to know what is expected and what the yardage approximations by the designer are based on what numbers. And that way I also have a better idea of how much yarn I need to buy. I am not the type of person who likes to just buy an extra skein of yarn just in case, because that's a lot of money. It's a pretty big investment already making a sweater. Now with this one, it's a little less costly because of how the fabric density is, so you don't have to buy as much as you would typically think of a sweater quantity. But just buying an extra skein of yarn, I feel like A, you end up sometimes with leftovers that you might not know what to do with, and B, I might not actually need that much yarn. And so I like to just have a better idea of what I'm dealing with. The yarns that I used are Fiber MacGyver Merino Linen Fingering, which is a single ply, and I don't have ball band or any of the yarn here with me. I bought this yarn at a local yarn festival here in Minnesota directly from the dyer, so that was super fun. The colorway is Mineral and it's this bright aqua, and it came in 400 yards for 100 grams, and in total I used about 150 grams. And then for the fuzzy yarn, I used a new to me yarn, and that is Kama Rose Midnatsole. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is a 54% baby alpaca, 36% lyocell, 10% merino wool. So I have to say that given the experience of having to rip back a fingering weight yarn plus mohair and comparing it to ripping back this fuzzy yarn plus the fingering weight yarn, because I had to redo an I-cord edge, this was so easy to rip back. There were no issues with it like sticking to each other or getting stuck or breaking because I'm pulling too hard. I had no issues. I did not put it in the freezer. I did not do anything special, no special treatment. I just undid it and redid it and it was just fine. So that's a plus. And the price point, I want to say it was maybe $8 or a little less than $8 for 25 grams, and 25 grams is 219 yards or 200 meters. So I find that to be a pretty friendly price point for fuzzy yarn. I feel like sometimes if you are making something that holds two yarns together, the price goes up very quickly because you are buying two amounts. The amount of yarn I used for the fuzzy yarn is 65 grams or about 75 yards. So that worked out really well. And I think with the leftover yarn, I can make like one of those little skinny scarves as like an accent color. I think that would be really fun. I think it could also be given as a gift. I don't think little scarves just require as much washing, and this would need hand washing. I think one of my daughters would probably take it, which would mean the hand washing is not an issue because I'll do it. But as a gift, I was just thinking if I gave it to somebody else, I don't think it should get too dirty. So they shouldn't have to hand wash it often if they did need to wash it. Anyway, just thinking out loud here. I pretty much made everything to pattern, and the sleeves had a tapered sleeve option or a non-tapered sleeve option where you just kind of knit even all the way to the end. I guess that would be like a wider sleeve. I thought I would try the tapered sleeve, and I really like how it fits. I think it fits really nicely. There's no ribbing anywhere, and so if sometimes maybe you just don't feel like doing any ribbing, this one finishes everything off in I-cord. The sleeve length is right up to my wrist, and I don't know if I have anything else to say about it. It's a really easy layering piece. The top goes just a little bit past my hip bones, which might be hard to tell here because I have this tank top underneath. Maybe we'll tuck that in. It still covers the waistband of my linen pants. It is also something that could be tucked in the front. Of course, not with this tank top, that doesn't work. I've worn it with jeans. I've worn it over a dress. And if I remember, I will put pictures of that here on the screen so you can see it worn in another way. And this is definitely something that I could see myself making again. I think with like 2 hanks of fingering weight yarn, I could easily do that and then find a fuzz. Or maybe I want to marl and try holding multiple fingering weight yarns together, or make it scrappy and have like one main color and then just marl in a bunch of fingering weight yarns. I feel like that could work really well and could be really fun, like create some sort of color story. And yeah, I feel like there's lots of different options. Or you could do one fuzzy yarn, just do one color fuzzy yarn, and then all the other fingering weight yarns as little bits here and there. Yeah, a lot of different ideas. I could definitely see making this one again. I find the neckline really comfortable. There is shaping, so the back is higher than the front, and that makes it really comfortable, so it's not like riding up on my neck and choking me. And yeah, I really like it. I would definitely recommend giving it a try if it is something that might be of interest to you. And I hope if you give it a try that you will enjoy making it as much as I did. On to the next finished project. These are a pair of socks. And this time I remembered to bring the knitting journal that the yarn colorways are inspired by. So this is a monthly Sock Squad yarn subscription from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. I think this is my 4th year participating. I can't remember exactly. But each month you are sent a sock set, so 100 grams and 20 grams. And although there are some months that are 250 grams and then a 20 gram. So each year they've done it slightly different. And this year we have this knitting journal and calendar where there are different illustrations where the colorways draw inspiration from. I am knitting my September yarn. Here you go. Or I have knit with my September yarn. This is the page for September. It is a fox with sunflowers. Yarn colorway is called Brush Watcher, and it is their Highwood sock base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams. And I knit the Summerlee Designs Colorwork Cuff Club. So that's another monthly subscription, also mystery, so you don't know what you're going to get each month. And I knit up the August colorwork chart. There were two, but I knit the floral motif using the September Sock Squad yarn. Okay, that was a mouthful. Are you ready to see the socks? Here we go. Here are the beautiful socks. I love how they came out. So the yarn color is this beautiful yellow, like brassy golden ochre color. And then the contrast color is a very subtly speckled beige. And the yarn colorways seem to vary slightly. I mean, they always do because they're hand dyed, but I feel like with this Sock Squad subscription, it seems like people have different, well, with the different hanks of yarn, the amount of speckling sometimes a little bit different, the amount of variegation can sometimes be a little bit different. But yeah, this is how mine came out to be. My contrast color was not super speckly, it was very subtle. And then I really like the tonality of the main color, and I feel like it is very evenly distributed in the light and darks. There was no significant pooling anywhere. And I changed up from the pattern just slightly. The cuff, I did a knit one, purl one. And then I adjusted stitch counts accordingly so that it would work with the colorwork chart. I did knit my slip stitch heel flap a little bit longer than what is in pattern to make the gusset slightly longer, which would give a little more room in the instep. And yeah, I'm so happy with how these turned out. So I used a US 1 or 2.25 millimeter for everything except for the colorwork. Colorwork section, I used a US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needle because with socks, they're generally made with negative ease. And once you add colorwork in there, you lose some of the elasticity just from the floats. It's just the nature of colorwork. So oftentimes by going up a needle size, you can make sure those floats are nice and loose so that there is still stretch and give because you want to be able to put on the socks. And I have no issues putting on the socks. I'm going to show you what the inside looks like. So here's the inside of my sock. I feel like the floats still have elasticity, but they aren't so loose that I would get my toes stuck in them if I were putting on the sock. And yeah, I'm very, very pleased with how these turned out. I'm trying to think if there was anything else to tell you about it. Don't think so. My gauge is not as tight as the designers. I believe their gauge was closer to 9.5 stitches per inch, and I had 8 stitches per inch with this yarn. Now, if I was using a light fingering weight yarn, it would be closer to 9, maybe even 9.5, but because the yarn weight I used is not a light fingering, but I would say just like a true standard fingering weight yarn at 400 yards for 100 grams, I was able to get 8 stitches per inch on a US 1. And I cast on the adult small. Now the size I usually knit for myself is like a 60 stitch count, and I can have a little wiggle room depending on the yarn that I use and my needle size and a bunch of other factors depending on what kind of heel I make. So if I know a sock is going to have more negative ease, I might choose to knit a heel flap and gusset and have more stitches so that I make sure the gusset is going to be comfortable. I don't want tight fabric across the top of my foot where I don't want it. I mean, I want my socks to be tight because I want negative ease, but what I mean is like on the very top of my foot, like across from the heel, diagonal from the base of the heel, I don't want the stitches right here to be super pulled apart because that can be really uncomfortable. And one way to resolve that issue is to have a deeper gusset. So I just made sure that the gusset was a little bit deeper here than what was written in the pattern, and they fit really well and they're really comfortable. The amount of yarn I used was about 51 grams of the main color, 6 grams of the contrast color. You can definitely switch things up, use yarn remaining from other projects. You could switch out the heel for a different color, the cuff for a different color, a toe for a different color, and really have so much fun with these. So I had a great time with these, and I look forward to seeing what the colorways and the colorwork charts are for months to come, and just kind of see what we can come up with. Okay, are we ready to move on to works in progress? I think I have four. Yes, I have 4 here to share with you. And since we are still on the topic of Sock Squad and colorwork cuffs, we are going to go on to the next pair of socks that I've cast on. Now, this is also a great time to mention that this is the 7th year of Denise's Falling Leaves Sock Knit Along. Denise is Earth Tones Girl on YouTube and Instagram, and an incredible sock knitter and sock knitting instructor. And I started my sock knitting journey in August of 2019, and I haven't stopped. And I am so excited to participate because I've been participating since I started knitting socks in 2019. And I'm just so excited to share with you this next pair of socks that I am knitting as part of this Falling Leaves Sock Knit Along. For the details on the knit along, please go check out Denise's Instagram. She has also shared a YouTube video that talks a little bit more about the knit along as well. So go there to find all the details. And it started September 15th and it runs to November 15th. And I'm so excited. So excited to share with you this next pair of socks. So I am continuing to use my Farmer's Daughter Sock Squad yarn. You will see 2 colors that I just showed you, but I have also added 2 other colors. One is from this year. Another one is a mini from I don't know when. And they are all the same base. So they're all the Highwood sock base at 80/20 superwash merino nylon, the 400 yards for 100 grams. Are you ready? Actually, I'm going to show you the yarn first. No, I'll just show you what I've got. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to put these on my hand, so I think it'll be easier to show. Are we ready? Dun, da, da, dun. Aren't these delightful? This is the September Colorwork Cuff pattern. I've once again changed up the cuff to be a knit one, purl one, and I just changed up the leg part a little bit by doing 4 complete repeats of the chart and instead of what it says in the pattern. And then I just started my striping down here, and I'm not following exactly how the color assignment is in the pattern. I'm just using, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 colors instead of, I think, 5 or 6 in the pattern. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in my heel using this dark brown again to match the cuff. And then I will continue with this stripe of the terracotta pink plus the brassy gold in stripes for the foot. And then for the toe, I might do the beige that I used in the color work, just to kind of tie it all together. So I just love all these colors together. I'm going to hold up these 4 yarns so you can see the colors. So I've got this beautiful terracotta pink, and then the brassy gold ochre color, and then this beige, and then a dark brown. The beige is very subtly speckled. The brown is pretty solid. And then the terracotta pink and the gold are pretty tonal with light and dark variation within the color. And I'm just so pleased. I'm so pleased. I love a good pink and gold moment. And this just says September to me. These colors are so autumnal. And this kind of patterning, I feel like, is very fall-esque, and I'm so pleased with it. We're just gonna have one more look before I put these away. Oh, so good. I really hope they're in focus because if they're not, I will be very sad. I feel like these needle stoppers are really distracting. They're bright green and not really going with the vibe here. So maybe I'm gonna tuck them in the back. How's that? I think that's better. These I also cast on the adult small, and I look forward to getting the heels on and continuing on my merry way. The next pair of socks we are going to talk about are a pair of socks I'm knitting for my husband, and I only have one sock in here, not because I'm not working on two at a time, but the other one is in my purse and they're the same. So we're just gonna go with it. If you've been here for a while, you will know that I am knitting my husband 12 pairs of socks this year, on average one per month, somewhere in that range. If I don't make it to 12, not a big deal. So I believe this is pair number 7, and I am using yarn from Mud Punch. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway called Rigadoon. It is a self-striping sock yarn at 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. It comes in 385 yards for 100 grams. It is a very round and plump sock yarn, and I feel like it washes and wears really well. I've never had a mend a hole in them, and I really like how it knits up. So I'm going to show you where we're at. I like to knit my socks cuff down, and so here we are. Oh, it's so good. I am through the heel, and I have used this cream color, which is a Patons Kroy yarn. It's labeled as fingering weight, but I would say it's either a light sport weight or a heavy fingering weight, and the density of it matches the density of this self-striping yarn. And it's a very hard wearing yarn, which I think is great to use for heels and toes, or just anywhere that might have more friction and have more chance of holes. Again, I haven't had any issues with it, but I really like this cream color. I feel like it just works well anywhere. For my cuff here, I did a knit round anytime there was a color change. I do have a tutorial for that here on YouTube, and that way you don't see the little pearl bumps in the ribbing. And then, yeah, I just kept going. I did a shadow wrap short row heel. And if you are interested in learning more about that, Denise has a great tutorial on YouTube and a pattern for how to knit a vanilla sock with the shadow wrap short row heel with photo tutorials in there. And that is a paid for pattern, and it's called Socksploration Shadow Wrap Heel, I think, or Socksploration Socks. I don't remember exactly, but hopefully I'll note it here on the screen so you can look for that if you are interested. But yes, it's just vanilla knitting, so stockinette round and round all the way to the end. This is something that I can keep in my purse, which is where the other sock is, for whenever I have a minute to knit on socks, which can be waiting in the doctor's office, waiting for the kids for something, or just whenever. So even if I only get 10 stitches in, it's something that I had, and 10 stitches in is more than not 10 stitches. Okay, 2 more works in progress, and these are both garments. I think we'll start with this one. I can't say a ton on this because it is a test knit. This is another test for Tori Yu, and this is the Courage Henley. I am knitting mine in a sample colorway that I purchased from Purl Soho last year, and this is just sample color 003, so it's not on their website, but it is a heathered brown with gray undertones, gray and purpley undertones. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of a wombat, even though I'm not sure I've ever seen a wombat in person, but it's what I imagine a wombat to look like. So I'm not sure if I wear it when I'm wearing this sweater, if I'm gonna feel like a wombat. I'm not really quite sure. I don't really know why I went that way. Anyway, this yarn is a 100% non-superwash merino wool, and it comes in 219 yards for 100 grams. This is a worsted weight pattern, and I'm almost done with it. I panicked for a little bit because I thought, oh no, the deadline is coming up, beginning of October. I really need to get this done. And so I really, really worked hard on it, and I am almost done. I will be just fine. Okay, are you ready to see where we're at? Here we are. Oh, it is lovely. This is going to be so cozy for the fall. This Henley neckline is the coolest thing. I love it. It is not my first time knitting a Henley. The last time I knit one was a Highline Henley, also a Tessera Toru. I'll pop a picture of that here on the screen. And this time, this shoulder construction is a little bit different. Again, I'm not going to go into tons of detail because it's still in testing, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I feel like my pickup of stitches has drastically improved in how tidy it is in the last year because I've had a lot of practice, and I'm so pleased with my picking up of stitches. And this time I also did a tubular bind off, which I almost never do. It isn't that I don't know how to do it, but I don't always find the effort to be outweighing the results for me. I know a lot of people love it. That's totally fine. This is not saying that nobody should do it. I'm just talking about myself. This yarn is very round, so it has great stitch definition. Hopefully you get an idea of it. And so being round, being bouncy, having a good stitch definition, and the neckline being kind of a focal point of this piece, I thought the tubular bind off would be beneficial and worth the effort. And I think it turned out really nicely. So tubular bind off basically makes the edge look like it's rolled over. So I did it all along there. I did it on the sleeve cuffs. Here we are. I think I worked out my tension issues. I was worried I was doing it a little bit too loose in the beginning, which made it wavy. And unpicking a tubular bind off is basically having to like undo it stitch by stitch. But on worsted weight yarn, it's not that bad. It came out okay. But yes, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think it looks very nice. And right now I'm just working on the body hem, on the ribbing there. And then I will be done. And then this can be blocked. I have to figure out the button situation, but yeah, I have a couple of weeks to get this done. So I think I'm right on track and everything will work out okay. So you will see that as a finished piece in early October. We are on to the last work in progress that I would like to share with you today. But before I do that, I need to show you my flowers. I forgot to share them with you in the beginning of the episode. These are beautiful zinnias from our garden. This bouquet has a lot of the fuchsia colored ones, and some orange, and some corally peachy pink ones. I love them. We probably have a couple more weeks. These are not frost tolerant, so as soon as it dips below freezing, they will be done for. So yeah, I'm thinking we still have a couple of weeks to enjoy these beautiful zinnias. The last work in progress to share with you today is my Jethro cardigan by Tanis Lavalley of Tanis Fiber Arts. Now this is a cardigan that has knitting and crocheting in it, and I have known how to do both for decades. My mom taught me when I was little, so probably around age 5 or 6, and that's the same age that I've introduced my kids to knitting, crocheting, and hand sewing as well. Of course, it's whenever they showed interest, but somewhere around that age, I want to say around kindergarten, first grade. And so it has always been part of my life, and I'm so glad that it's part of the lives of my kids as well. And they see me crafting and making stuff all the time too, and so it is literally just part of our daily life. And I'm just so excited to have this garment to work on that incorporates both of those skills together in a very cohesive piece. I will hopefully have flashed a picture of the designer's version of it here on the screen. This is a DK weight pattern. It was released in March 2024. The needle size recommended is a US 6, which is a 4mm needle. And then the ribbing is done on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter. And then the crocheting is done on a 3.75 millimeter or F size hook. The sizing, it does come in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sizes from a finished 34.5 inch chest circumference to a 78.75 inch chest circumference. Now it's not that many size, it's a big size range, but not that many sizes, just because of how the granny squares are set up. And the pattern does give you instructions on how to adjust the sizing depending on how many rounds you do around the granny square or how many granny squares you do. And I am knitting and crocheting mine in Purl Soho's linen quill that I have collected over the many years. I went with a soft, earthy autumnal palette full of golds and reds and purples, and I will flash a picture on the screen now of the yarns before I started using them. There was one yarn color I had to order more of because it was going to be my main color for joining all of the squares together and for my sleeves and the ribbing. I did use more colors than the pattern calls for, but it is very open for you to use as many or as few colors as you would like. I'm just so excited with how this is turning out. I'm going to share it with you now. Let's see. Okay, how should we hold this? Oh, the suspense. Here we are. Here is my Jethro cardigan work in progress. And I am participating in CC of Stitch Witchcraft's make-along that is encouraging people to make cardigans. And I'll put that hashtag here on the screen. And that goes through the end of this year. And I love how this is turning out. It is so beautiful. I have decided to make a couple changes. So I omitted one row of granny squares in the body length because I wanted it to be more cropped. My ribbing will be a little bit longer, but I want it to hit high hip. And then I will pick up to do my sleeves in this raw sienna color, which is a golden brownie yellow ochre color. And I just think this color is gonna go so well with everything. Now it doesn't go well with my outfit today, but I'm going to put it on just so you can see how it fits currently. Oh, let's try not to get tangled here. I'm gonna stand up. And so the ribbing currently hits right above my hip bone because I do kind of want it to sit around my natural waist. And this has not been wet blocked yet. I have done a quick steam block just to relax the stitches a little bit. And I did not do a join as you go. For my squares, I mattress stitched them all together. I just felt like it was going to be more stable that way. And I did try the join as you go method, but I didn't love how it looked. So this is how I did mine. I think it's very tidy. I have woven in some of the ends. There are lots and lots of ends because there are lots of color changes, but it is just part of the process and I am okay with that. So yeah, this is how it is looking. Let me see if I can step back a little bit. And then I will pick up for the sleeves here and then probably not do any decreases. I'm thinking of just doing knit even all the way down to the bottom and maybe do a quick decrease, a rapid decrease round, and then knit the cuff. I think this is going to be really nice to wear with dresses. Oh, I just love it. Oh, I can show you the back part. The back part I've woven the majority of the ends in, and I feel like it looks very, very tidy. And I forgot to mention, no two squares are the same. I made them all different, and I did have a little method to it. So along the bottom here, the outside square prior to the main color are all kiln red. And then in the middle band, the outside color is all this orangey color. And then the top row either has baked earth or peony pink on the front, And then on the back, the top row has honey pink as that outer color. And then the inside are all different combinations. So no two squares are the same, but there is that little bit tying it together. And then of course the raw sienna tying all of it together. We are on to the eats and reads section. As far as baking goes, I don't know if I've done anything particularly different or interesting. It is the moon festival time, and though I don't make moon cakes, my sister-in-law does for fun, and my youngest was over at their house and they were making moon cakes, and so I got to eat some, and they're delicious with the red bean filling inside, and they just made a new batch, and so I think my brother will be dropping off some of those later. I do have molasses cookies waiting to be baked. I made the dough sitting in the fridge before I start rolling them, and I will drop off or exchange cookies for the moon cakes when I see him later today. So that'll be nice. And then as far as reading goes, I am currently reading A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This book was published August 6th, 2024. The category is fantasy, horror, fairy tale retelling, adult fiction. And it is a dark retelling of the Brothers Grimm's Goose Girl. And there's secrets, murder, forbidden magic, and it is dark, but I feel like there are heartwarming moments in it and some humor. And I really like how the characters are developed, and they're all so different that you really do get the voice of each one. And I really like that. I think if you are looking for a standalone book to kind of take you into spooky season, this could be a good one to read. I am not somebody who likes really scary stories. I'm kind of a scaredy cat, and though I love fall, I don't like the spooky things, but at the same time, I can read this. And that is not saying this is very spooky. Some of you might be reading this or have read it and think, oh, that was not scary at all. But yeah, it's good. I like it. I am almost done. I think I have less than 25% left, maybe. There are a couple sentences thrown in the book related to fiber arts. I did tag one of them. I'm going to read it to you. I realize that the words won't really make any sense because there's no context for you, but I'm going to read it anyway. Where in the blazes do you get meteoric iron these days? I can't even get embroidery floss that's dyed the same color twice. I just thought that was so funny because we talk about dye lots, and even though I don't use embroidery floss, like I get it still. So anyway, I thought that was funny. There was another part with knitting in here, but I didn't tag the spot, so I don't know where it is anymore. I am enjoying it, and I have another book lined up to read. This one does have people waiting after it, so I have to hurry up and finish it so I can return it to the library so other people can read it, and then I will get on to my next book. Sometimes I do read multiple books simultaneously just because I might need a break from one, and they might be different genres, but because this one has people waiting, I cannot renew it, and so I do have to finish it, and then I'll move on to my next one. Okay, I think that is everything that I have for you today. Are you a seasonal type of person? I feel like I don't necessarily decorate for each season in my house, but I really do feel the essence or the energy of each season as they come and go. And so I feel like right now I'm definitely feeling like the September energy, this transition from summer to fall, and then it's also the beginning of a school year, and so that plays into it a lot, and just adapting and adjusting and all of those things, but also exciting things and new things, and figuring out our new routines and figuring out what works and doesn't work. And as our children grow, their interests and behaviors and reactions to things also change. And I think that's important to remember because sometimes we expect things to be the same all the time, forgetting that we change. And so it's okay that there's change. We just need to adapt and kind of keep going with it. So how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Is there anything exciting you in this change of seasons, whether you're in the north or southern hemisphere, the season is changing and it's exciting. It's exciting. I would be okay with it being a little cooler outside. The 85 degrees in September, I feel like, is warmer than it was in June, but it's okay. It means that our garden is still producing, and we will take that for as long as possible. With that, cheers to being creative. I hope you are doing well, taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time.